everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game from Gen Con. It might arguably be one of the most popular games that was at Gen Con, and that is 5 Tribes by Bruno Cathala. Now, this is a game from Days of Wonder. It's touted to be one of their heaviest games so far that they've got in their series. It's got beautiful artwork, and it is probably the heaviest game in the Days of Wonder series so far. With that said, I'm not going to call it the heaviest of games, but it is one that has a lot of choices. The idea of this game is that you are moving meeples around an ever-changing puzzle, trying to find the best combination of moves that will give you points by the end of the game. And there are so many ways to earn points that you're going to have to really think about it each time that it comes around to your turn. Quickly, before I get too much into it, why don't we just open the box up? We'll see the beautiful components that Days of Wonder are known for. We'll see how the game plays, and then we'll come back here at the end and get my opinion on 5 Tribes. So here you can see the layout for 5 Tribes. Now I've set this up for a 4-player game, but you can play 3 or 2 players. Right now our first player is orange and our last player is black, but the first thing you're going to do on each round is you're going to bid for turn order. The reason you want a better turn order, or maybe a later turn order, is because the status of this board, the status of this puzzle kind of, will change each time a player makes a move. So if you're first, you obviously have the choice of what's currently out there, but if you're not first, you will have a different choice of how to move around the board based on what the first player does. When you bid, you're bidding dollars that you start with. You start the game with 50 money, 45 in 5s and 5 in 1s, and you're making a bid where you'd like to be in turn order. If you bid $18, you're clearly going to go first because no one can bid anything higher than that. But if you bid lower, people can always go ahead of you if they're willing to pay more money. You may even bid $0, and that could theoretically get you a position that you like. However, if you're the first to bid 0 and someone else bids 0, they push you back and you will now go after them. So bidding 0 first is not necessarily good. Anyhow, you're going to bid for turn order. You're going to pay your money as soon as you bid, and perhaps the turn order ends up something like this. Now that we're done bidding for turn order and everyone's paid their money, we move out to moving these meeples on the board. You can see that each of these tiles has a different assortment of meeples on them. The tiles are placed randomly in a 6x5 grid, and the meeples are pulled randomly, 3 meeples per tile. We place these on here at the start of the game, and these pieces are going to act somewhat like Mancala pieces. If you've ever played Mancala, or if you've played Trajan, or other games that use the Mancala mechanism, what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to choose a tile, and you're going to pick up all of the meeples from that tile. You are then going to distribute those meeples, orthogonally adjacent, to one tile at a time, dropping them 1 meeple on each tile until you hit a tile where you place your last meeple. There are special rules here, and the special rules are that 1, you're not allowed to double back when you're placing, and 2, the last meeple you drop on a tile must match a meeple of that color already on the tile. So for example, if I were to move these 3 meeples, I could place yellow, green, and green, and that would be a legal placement. However, I could not do green, green, yellow because there's not already a yellow meeple on this tile. So I would choose whatever tile I wanted and pick up all 3 meeples. Let's say, for example, I decide to pick up the 3 meeples from this tile right here. When I do so, I distribute a white, a green, and a red, ending up on this tile right here. I would then pick up all of the red meeples from that tile. So whatever the last color I dropped was on the last tile, I'm going to pick up all meeples of that color, and I'm going to set them aside, removing them from the tile. This then gives me an ability. So first I check and see if I control the tile that I landed on. I don't control it because there's a meeple still there. If I had emptied it by pulling off my meeples, I would go ahead and I would put one of my camels on it, showing that I have ownership of that tile, and earning me 5 points at the end of the game, at least 5 points for owning this tile. However, there's still a blue meeple on this tile. What I have done though is I've picked up 3 red meeples, and each type of meeple you pick up whenever you end your movement is going to give you a turn. So I have red, you'll only ever have 1 color, but the ability of red is that they allow me to assassinate a meeple that's out on the board. I get to kill 1 meeple, and the meeple that I get to kill is up to 3 spaces away because I removed 3 red meeples from the board. Well, my best movement action right now is probably to assassinate the meeple on the tile I just ended on, killing this blue meeple. That now empties the tile and will allow me to take control of that tile. If I had already emptied this tile, I would probably want to look for a meeple somewhere else on the board that I can assassinate to make things better for me. And if through doing so I'm able to clear a second tile, I get control of that tile too. So let's say I assassinate that meeple, and I get control of that tile for having done so. All of these meeples that I took off of the board and the one I assassinated will be placed back into the bag for potentially later use, but not likely. Actually, I don't think there is a later use, but at least to remove from the board and have an easy place to store them. Depending on if I had removed a different color of meeple instead or ended with a different color of meeple, they all have different abilities that are outlined on this nice game turn sheet. Yellow, you just keep the meeples and they're worth points at the end of the game, 1 VP per, and if you have the most, you'll get 10 VP. Elders, which are the white meeples, you get to keep as well, but those can be spent as a currency to buy gin. We'll talk about that momentarily. The greens are going to be merchant meeples, and when you pull those off, you'll look at how many you pulled off, and that will allow you to take that many of the cards from the front of the market row. So if I pulled off 3, I would get to take these 3 cards, which can be later turned in for money, which is, of course, victory points. The blues are going to be kind of a point scoring or money scoring mechanism. When you drop blues and you pick them up, let's say I picked up blues from this tile, and we'll say that I picked up a couple of them, I'm going to multiply the number of blues I picked up times the number of blue tiles in that area, surrounding the tile I was on and including it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2. If I happen to have slave cards that I want to discard that I've picked up from the market, I can discard those to add to the number of meeples I picked up, which would theoretically give me more money that I've earned for picking those blues up. And of course, we already covered reds. But what I didn't tell you is that reds can also be boosted by slave cards in order to give you more distance from which you can assassinate a target meeple. Once we've done the action of whatever meeple we picked up, we're also going to activate the tile that we ended on. This one is mandatory, that's the red arrow, and it means that I'm going to place a palace out onto this tile. When I place that palace, it's going to be worth points to whoever controls that tile at the end of the game. So it's great for me to put this here because it's worth 5 points to me as the controller for the end of the game. Once we're done with that, we're going to move on, and you've basically finished your turn at this point. But let's talk about what some of the other tiles can do here. This one, when you end on it, is going to let you place a tree there. These trees are not quite as good as the palaces, but when you have this control of the tile at the end of the game, it's going to be worth 3 points. You'll also note that these tiles are all worth different numbers of points, some up to 12, but you can see 6, 5, 8 on different values, so controlling higher point tiles will be worth more points. You'll want to pay attention to that. But trees are 3 bonus points to the controller of a tile at the end of the game. You can see we have this market one here. This is kind of the small bazaar. If you were to activate this tile by ending on it, you would pay $3 if you wanted to, and you can take one of the first 3 cards from the market. So it lets you buy one of these for $3. Again, we have trees and palaces. We also have the ability to buy gin. Gin are these cards that are on the left-hand side here, going down from this pile of cards. To buy a gin, it's going to cost you 1 elder from your supply, plus either another elder or a slave that you've picked up from the market. That will allow you to buy these cards, which are also worth victory points at the end of the game. Each of them has a different ability that you can use throughout the game in order to help yourself. So for example, we have Civitas here that says you can pay once you've bought it, an elder and either another elder or a slave card, to look at the top 3 cards of the gin deck and keep one of them. So it's basically buying another gin. You have Ibis here, or Ibgis here, that lets you pay either a elder or a slave, and your assassins essentially do double work. They can kill 2 meeples from the board of the same color from the same tile, or 2 white meeples from someone's supply, or 2 yellow meeples from someone's supply if you're trying to adjust their ability to buy gin or to score extra victory points at the end of the game. And finally, you have Baal here that says that you can get 2 money whenever an opponent takes a gin, or 1 money every time you take a gin. So activating one of these tiles by ending on it will let you take the ability to buy one of these, and then you can use them on your future turns. That's all of those, but we do have the large bazaar here, which will let you pay $6 to get 2 of the first 6 cards from the marketplace. Now, you might ask, why do you want these cards? Well, once you've finished your turn by picking up your meeples, moving them, removing meeples, and checking for control, activating the ability of your meeples, and activating the ability on your tile if you'd like, you can do what's called a merchandise sale, which is an optional thing. You're going to be accumulating these cards from your hand, and you can sell sets of them back to the market in order to get money. A set of 1 card is worth $1. A set of 2 different cards is worth 3. 3 different cards is worth 7, and onward and upwards. You can even sell multiple sets if you like, but in each set, no 2 cards may be the same. So you could sell 3 different sets, one of size 3, one of size 4, and one of size 5, in order to get 41 money. Once you're done with your sale, you're essentially going to clean up, replenishing this market to 9 cards, replenishing the gin to 3, and giving the turn to the next player. As everyone takes their turn, they'll be moving their meeples back to this bidding turn order phase, and once everyone's taken their turn, essentially you're going to clean up, as I just said, for the end of the round, again, just like you clean up at the end of a turn. You then start a new round by going through another round of bidding, and this will keep going in this manner until one of two things happens. Essentially, either there's going to be no possible moves on the board, which essentially would mean that you can't place a meeple somewhere with another meeple of the same color with your last move, or someone places all of their camels. You're going to get a specific number of camels in the game, and once you place all of your camels out on the board, that will trigger the end of the game. You would then finish out the round with everybody getting their actions and score up your points. There's a nice sheet that comes with this game that tells you exactly how to score points. Each of your money is simply worth points. Then each one of your yellow guys that you have in front of you is worth 1 point, and 10 points if you have the most. Each of the white guys that you kept, the elders that you didn't spend on Djinn or Djinn abilities, is going to be worth 2 points. Then you're going to look and see what the value is of all of your Djinn, and you're going to get those points, adding them on. You'll look at the value of all of the tiles you control, adding that on, the value of all of the trees that are trees and palaces on tiles you control, and then you get one final sale to the market at the end of the game. You'll total up all of these points, and whoever has earned the most money throughout the game, 5 tribes, will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is 5 tribes from Bruno Cathala and Days of Wonder. This game was touted to me, as I said, as kind of a heavier game, and it is definitely heavier than the normal Days of Wonder fare. I would actually call it kind of a medium game, but the amount of choices you have each turn, along with the different ways you can score points, actually make this feel quite a bit like a Stefan Feld game to me. And if you know me and you've watched my reviews, you know that that's some pretty big praise for this game. I love Stefan Feld games, and this one has a very similar feel. Each turn you're going to be picking up a group of meeples. Which meeples you may not know right until before your turn, because somebody else may change the status of the board right before you take your action. Once you've picked those meeples up, there are so many different options as to where you can move them. Now, of course, you are pinholed a little bit by the fact that you have to end somewhere that's the same color as the last meeple you're dropping, but that still provides you with usually multiple different options as to how to move the meeples. On top of that, once you do finish, you're going to pick those meeples up, get an action from picking those meeples up. You may take control of the tile, and then you have an additional action you can take from the tile itself. On top of that, you may have Djinns that you have in your possession that will let you alter your turn. So there's so many different things to consider. The fact that you bid and spend victory points to bid is another really interesting aspect to this. So you're spending money, those are worth points at the end of the game. You need to figure out the balance between how much do I want to spend in order to take a specific action that I see versus how much might the board change before I take that action if I don't bid enough. So all in all, just an excellent design. As I said, medium weight, but one that offers a ton of different options and is probably heavier in terms of the number of choices you can make, and one that I enjoy quite a bit. So if that sounds good to you, check it out. That's 5 tribes from Days of Wonder.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.